I will not marry a spirit.
A young man, known as the strongest wrestler in the 7 Hills, was backing away from the compound gate so fast he tripped over his own feet. He wore only a braided wrapper tied at his waist and a single string of ebony beads around his neck. His face, usually set in a mask of courage, was now pale and trembling. "My father did not tell me I was coming to marry a graveyard," he hissed, his voice cracking. He didn't even look back to reclaim the jars of palm wine he had brought as a bride price. He turned and sprinted toward the forest, his feet kicking up clouds of red dust, leaving the village elders standing in confused silence. Ugomma, a pretty lady, looked confused, and on her head, balanced on a massive spiritual clay pot, soot-stained and overflowing with black, oily water that she didn't know was there. In the village of Uzoagba, Ugomma was a masterpiece of flesh and bone. She moved with a grace that made the tall grass stop swaying just to watch. Her father was wealthy, her lineage was pure, and her beauty was a flame that drew every man in the land. But Ugomma's heart was as sharp as a flint knife. She walked through the village square as if the ground was lucky to feel her tread. One evening, near the village square's ancient silk cotton tree, she met an old woman, Mane, who was struggling to rise from the dirt, her tattered wrapper snagged on a root. "My daughter," the old woman whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. "Help me stand. My legs have forgotten their strength." Ugomma didn't stop. She didn't even look down. "If your legs have forgotten how to stand, perhaps they should learn how to crawl," she sneered. She deliberately stepped on the old woman's hand with her beaded sandal and walked on, laughing. Mane didn't scream. She simply looked at Ugomma's retreating back and whispered a word into the wind, a word that sounded like the cracking of a dry branch. The next week, the finest men began to arrive to seek Ugomma's hand. Each time, the scene was the same. A man would walk in, full of pride and songs, dressed in his finest waist wrapper and neck beads. But the moment they stepped into the inner courtyard to see Ugomma, their songs died in their throats. The hunter, he took one look at her, dropped his bow, and began to pray to his ancestors before fleeing. The drummer, he looked at her and fell into a fit of shivering, claiming the air around her was colder than a tomb. The prince, he walked in with a crown of beads, looked at her for 3 seconds, and immediately ordered his servants to carry him home, refusing to speak for 3 days. Ugomma stood in the center of it all, looking radiant and untouched. "What is wrong with them?" she would scream at her father. "Am I not beautiful? Is my skin not smooth?" To her, she was perfect. To the village, she was a mystery. But to the men who wanted her, she was terrifying. Finally, a man named Obi came. He was a quiet man, a carver of wood who wore a simple faded wrapper. He didn't bring gold. He brought a small wooden comb he had carved himself. He entered the compound. He looked at Ugomma. He didn't run, he didn't scream, but his eyes grew wide and he breathed a heavy sigh of pity. "You see it, don't you?" Ugomma asked, her voice trembling. "Tell me, what do they see that makes them run? Why am I alone in my beauty?" Obi stepped closer, his hand reaching out. "They run because they see the truth of your spirit, Ugomma. They see what you have invited to sit upon you." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, and as he did, the vision was shared. The village elders and her father finally saw it through Obi's touch. Balanced on Ugomma's head was a massive spiritual clay pot, soot-stained and overflowing with black, oily water that she didn't know was there. "You mocked an old woman's weakness," Obi whispered, "so the spirits gave you a weight you cannot put down. You are carrying the thirst of everyone you have ever insulted." Ugomma fell to her knees, the spiritual water spilling over her, cold and bitter. For the first time, she felt the crushing weight of her own pride. She wept until the red earth beneath her turned to mud. Obi didn't leave. He sat with her, his hand steady on her arm, helping her balance the invisible pot until the sun went down. Only when she vowed to spend her life serving those she once mocked did the pot finally shatter into 1,000 echoes. The village proverb, "The eyes of a suitor see what the heart of a father hides."